What's going on YouTube? My name is Mr. Crippled and today I'm going to be bringing you my Sobek guide. Now before I get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you'd like to keep up with any future content, I will be leaving a link to my Discord and my Twitch in the description below. Now, Sobek is an amazing addition to this game. Has a lot of good counter plays, but it's not too overpowered, but coming into Smite 2 with a lot of new mechanics that still make him a threat and keeps him relevant. Still a CC monster and basically the Guardian version of Hercules. Definitely worth the pickup and can flex in two different roles in my opinion, so definitely a welcome addition. As usual, I'm going to be going over what his kit does, and then I'm going to be going over some pretty standard builds and starts that you can do in your solo lane experience. First and foremost, I do want to talk about his passive, Blessing of the Nile. Basically, it's the Hercules passive. He gets hit, he gets protections. And he does get the amount of protection he gets does scale up the higher his abilities are, or the higher his level is, and he only gets 3 stacks at a time. At base, he only gets 2 protections, but it goes up by an additional 0.4 for every level. So basically, you get an extra 8 protections, roughly, somewhere around there. You get a pretty decent amount of protections, just for taking damage, and this does go up when you get hit by minions, so it's not just enemy god damage. Now I want to go ahead and talk about Sobek's 1 charge prey. Now keep in mind that Sobek's abilities all scale with intelligence, so you don't really need to be building multiple damaging items. You're mostly going to be building hybrid items out of the magical, out of the intelligence skill tree. But his 1 is his skill shot. He charges forward, grabbing the first enemy, not just enemy god, but the first enemy hit, becomes CC immune, and then throws that enemy backwards. So it's a stun, a knock up, and a pretty decent charge move, and it's a run move as well, with pretty low cooldowns at 12 seconds for an ability like this. That's great for engaging and great for getting away since it comes out so fast. Get some practice throwing this ability out, and keep in mind this can hit minions, so use this ability sparingly and be very careful trying to pluck enemies out of towers, because if you miss, you're going to be stuck under that tower taking tower shots. Up next, I want to talk about Sobek's 2 Tail Whip. This is a AoE spin that displaces enemies, so it's another kind of a pseudo knockup. Does 260 base damage and has a 40% scaling of intelligence scaling. This ability is very nice when you're trying to get pretty decent clear on minions, if you're trying to interrupt enemy god CC, if they're not knockup immune during their casting time. And it's a good move to just kind of throw out, just to keep enemies on their toes. That way you can still CC them without having to waste your 1. Up next, I want to talk about Sobek's 3 Sickening Strike. Now, this ability is actually insane. Comes with dot damage, it comes with a big heal, it comes with anti-heal, and it's a pretty chunky anti-heal as well. Sobek throws sickles in a cone that only does about 215 damage with a 30% intelligence scaling, so it doesn't hit too terribly hard. Where this ability goes crazy is that now it does dot damage on gods, and it does 7% of their HP over 2.5 seconds. Very hard-hitting ability. And last but not least, I want to talk about Sobek's ultimate, Lurking in the Waters. Now, this does give you CC immunity. You do slow enemies that are caught in the ring. You also gain protections, and you gain a little bit of mana regen. The crazy thing about this is that you can also go under man-made structures, or god-made structures. So your mirror wall, he can ignore that. He can ignore basically anything that's put in front of him. He'll go under minions, and he'll basically just chase after the enemy. What's also amazing about this is that it's an execute. How the execute works on this is that it starts off at a 10% of their max HP. And then as your ultimate is casting, it will scale up to 25% of their max HP. So you can hit somebody with a lot of CC, get into a team fight, and just stand in the ultimate. And while you're super tanky and your team is doing a lot of damage, you can be getting ready for a huge execute on squishies, making it very easy for him to kill a lot, not only the frontliners, but some of the backliners as well. As well as the fact that this ultimate still does 900 damage plus 80% plus 80% of intelligence scaling. So this ultimate still hits incredibly hard. Up next, I want to talk about Sobek's leveling pass for his abilities. Now, I already kind of hinted at what you're going to be wanting to be leveling as you go along. Obviously, at level 1, you're going to want to get your 3. The dot damage and the heal off of this is way, way, way too important. After this, though, level 2 is kind of up to you and very matchup dependent. If you're struggling with the clear, then I would recommend going into your 2. If you can compete with just your 3 in clear against the enemy god, then you want to go your 1. But again, keep in mind that you will still be a sitting duck as you're throwing the enemy god. So if you do it and there's an enemy minion wave, you're still going to take a lot of damage there. And if you've already used your 3, then you're not going to have to heal. So use the ability sparingly. But in my opinion, I think the safest pick is always to go your 2 and then your 1 at level 3. After this, you're going to want to just level into your 3 as much as possible at level 4. And then at level 5, you're going to want to go into your ultimate. After this, you're going to want to level your 3 all the way to max, or as far as you can get it. And then once you get to rank 4 or rank 5 respectively, then you either want to put your points into your 1 or your 2. If you're consistently hitting your 1, then I would recommend putting points into the 1 simply because it does way more damage if you're trying to 1v1. If not, it might be more beneficial to level the 2 simply because it does do a pretty decent amount of damage and it has a lot of CC. Plus, it's the easier ability to hit of the 2, albeit it does a little bit less damage. So in my opinion, I think it's best if you level the 2 first just for safety, and once you get used to them, to start leveling the 1. And then after that, the final 2 abilities you're going to be wanting to level is your ultimate and whatever ability you have last. Put abilities into your ultimate as you go along as usual because the damage you get from this is still pretty crazy. If you do just want to focus on your abilities and just let the execute be an execute rather than just using it for damage, you can do that, though I do not recommend that because even though he does have anti-heal, there's still too many healing gods in the game and they can get healed above the threshold for the execute, so sometimes it's better just to go for the damage. Up next, I want to talk about Sobek's builds. Now, as far as the relics goes, the only 2 relics that I typically recommend are Blink and Sundering. Mostly because Sundering will help you deal with really tanky gods and help you clear your own clear your own buff really quickly because his level 1 clear is still a little bit slow even with the dot damage on his 3. Blink if you're going to be a support or you don't mind the slower clear and you just want to be as aggressive or as defensive as possible. But I usually only recommend those 2 relics. After that, your starter is going to be very, very dependent. Warrior's Axe is good to help you be a little bit tankier than the other person. It does do true damage and will translate way better into late game, but you do that at the cost of your clear, especially since a lot of people are playing magical ADC or magical ADCs, but damaging gods into the solo lane. If you want the damage and you want to be able to box a little bit better and help your clear, I do recommend Conduit Gem. Now, if you want the cooldowns, you can argue Sands of Time. Personally, I haven't really tried it yet. I do want to try it soon to see if it would be better at Conduit Gem, but in my experience, Conduit Gem has just been the better option. But the spamminess of Sands of Time would be very would translate really well into the game as well. After that, the first defensive item that you're going to be getting is very, very, very dependent. If you know that you're going to be going against a physical solo laner, 100% you're going to want to go into Gladiator's Shield. This makes it to where your abilities will do additional damage based off your protections, and since we have a protection passive, this will just naturally make you hit harder. Plus, it still gives you health, physical protections, and a whopping 20 cooldown rate. This is one of the best, if not the best, physical defense starter in solo lane right now. After this, you have 2 options. If you want more sustain to be more annoying, you can go Shield of the Phoenix. That only gives you 15 cooldown rate, but it does give you 200 max health, physical protections, and it heals you every time you hit an ability. This does stack with your 3, so you're going to get a very chunky heal from this ability. If you don't want that, and you want more cooldowns and have better cycling and sustain, Breastplate of Valor is going to be the next go-to because it does give about 10 more physical protections. It doesn't give health, but it does give max mana and mana regen, but it does give 10 more cooldown rate as well. Me personally, I like going into Shield of the Phoenix after this just because it makes it to where it's really difficult for physical solo laners to fight you. After this, you can either go 2 routes. You can go for a DPS option, even though you're not going to really need it too much if you go Conduit Gem into Glad Shield. because now you're going to be getting a lot of power from just both these items. But if you want to really screw with the other person, I really recommend building into Ruinous Unk. Having a natural ability that has anti-heal and pairing it with another anti-heal item is very scummy, but they get 80% reduced healing, and all in all, it's just going to be way better for you. After this item, you can either go Spirit Robe or Stone of Binding. Stone of Binding does give you pseudo penetration, since anytime you hit an enemy god with CC, they lose 15 physical protections and 15 magical protections for 4 seconds. And since he has 2 different very heavy CC moves, his ability is not only going to benefit you, but benefit your entire team. Spirit Robe, because if you do start getting CC'd, then you do get the extra physical and magical protections, which will just go straight into Glad Shield. If you want more cooldowns, I recommend Genji's Guard, just because now whenever you take magical damage, and since two or three of the enemy gods in most cases are going to be magical, you're going to get a lot of benefit from Genji's Guard, even though this only occurs once every 45 seconds. Just having this item on is going to help you cycle very, very, very quickly. If you do want some damaging items, as I've mentioned before, the World's Dawn is a very troll item, but can be very situational. So if you want to be able to spam your ultimate and get those permanent stacks of 25 health, Soul Reaver is definitely a really strong solo laner item as well for a DPS option. If you do have intelligence scaling somewhere in your kit, and since Sobek is only intelligence scaling, he's going to benefit a lot from this. This Soul Reaver, I do think, is better paired if you went with a Warrior's Axe start, but it does still help you with Conduit Gem. Divine Ruin is also a really good item to go into if you just want to pair a Ruinous Unk and your 3 to make it to where they get negative healing. Chronos Pendant is also a good cycling ability, but you don't really need too many cooldowns if you already have these 2 items here first and Genji somewhere. Some hybrid items will be nice on him too. Void Stone, that way they have their magic protection reduced even further, plus you do still get 40 intelligence, so you hit a little bit harder. Wish Granting Pearl is also really nice for magical scaling solo laners, since it does give health, mana, and a whopping 80 intelligence. Helm of Radiance is situational, since you can stack it on top of Shield of the Phoenix, or if you notice that they have a lot of physical damaging gods, so you just stack a lot of physical defense. I wouldn't recommend building Mystical Mail, Gauntlet of Thieves, or Prophetic Cloak if you're playing in solo lane. Prophetic Cloak is going to take a very long time for you to be able to stack, especially since right now, in my opinion, a lot of the best gods are magical DPSs. So you're really only going to be able to get the magical stacks quickly, but physical is where you're going to start struggling. Gauntlet of Thieves is nice if you're going to be a support, and you can use this in solo lane if you're killing a lot, but you can only stack this on your own if you kill a god or get an assist on a minion, so it's going to really hurt your clear. If you want to build this as a solo laner, I'd recommend building this a little bit later when you have more items on and you can benefit from it more. Niche items that you can use, Shifter Shield, obviously Shifter Shield is still very amazing. Eye of the Storm is okay on him. You don't really need it since all the other cards he's going to be building are going to be way more important. Hide of the Nemean Lion could also be beneficial for you as well if they're very auto-focused. And it doesn't necessarily mean physical ADCs. It could also mean like Zeus, Soul, in some cases Nuwa. You can also go Leviathan's Hide. That way anybody who does hit you with basic attacks lose 10% of their strength for 4 seconds. And it stacks up twice. They can lose up to 20% of their maximum strength, making it to where physical ADCs are going to be struggling against you, a little bit. But again, those are very situational. Last but not least, the only other thing that I recommend building on this god, if you just want to have a good time, is Typhon's Fang. Now that it does give intelligence, and you'll have a crap ton of healing. But again, those last couple items are very niche. And that's going to be all for my Sobek guide. If you liked the video, again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I appreciate y'all's time. And let me know what you think about the new addition to Smite 2 now. I cannot iterate enough how great he is to have, especially with Hercules being as broken as he is, and then they immediately release a god that counterpicks him. It's poetry. But thanks again for y'all watching, and I'll catch y'all later.